Hello everyone, it's Lissa here again, and welcome to our Astrology Zodiac chat channel. This video is dedicated today to Pisces at the early degree placements. So in your natal chart, you can look at any planets you have at Pisces at 0, 1, or 2 degrees. And don't forget to watch the introductory video for an explanation on the early degrees before you attempt to apply them to your own specific charts. Remember to like them to like a child or a toddler-like behavior in the description to the reactions that might occur for these early degrees. So we usually stereotypically know Pisces as the sensitive, spiritual sign of the zodiac. They're creative and empathetic and intuitive and artistically inclined. And on the opposite side of that spectrum, they can be a little emotionally oversensitive to the point that they can even turn to substance abuse, drugs or alcohol, just to cope with the harshness of, rejection or any problems in the world. They can be a little bit possessive or needy and idealistic a little bit about their lives. And understanding those things, let's now consider if we had some early degree placements in the zodiac and liken that to that toddler behavior that we spoke of in the introductory video. So let's first consider Mars in Pisces at the early degrees. Our example here of this fiery planet Mars, like in an argument or a defensive mechanism in Pisces, the empathetic sign. So they're more of an escapism response, or maybe they would resort to guilt in that early degrees as a manipulative method more for fighting than a yelling, screaming kind of aggressive sort. They might internalize a lot, or like a toddler would, they may storm out of the room to avoid confrontation and not really fight in a mature fashion. So just walking away or slamming a door in frustration maybe. On a positive note, they'll likely not be as aggressive as some of the other fire signs that you would see, like our Mars planet. So the argument would be, less intense that way. They would more internalize, like we said, that behavior instead in general. Okay, Venus and Pisces at the early degrees in a relationship with a person. They may not have completely matured in their dealings with others yet. They could tend to be really overprotective or even needy on the opposite side of it. They don't really desire a breakup, and even though they might have contributed to the downfall of the relationship, they still would likely feel this victim to that situation because those early degrees in Pisces is that toddler reacting. They're just not comfortable with a full, mature relationship yet. But on a positive note, the early degrees in Pisces are usually loyal friends, and they won't jeopardize the relationships over a misunderstanding because they know how deeply they feel if something goes wrong. Okay, let's take a quick look at the moon in Pisces at the early degrees. The moon is also thought of as our emotional sector again, so this can be a difficult area to have in the early degrees of Pisces because they're already that watery, emotional sign, And again, to that toddler behavior, they could have extreme highs, extreme lows in these early degrees. A loss of job could, create an emotional spiral for them, or they could be the life of the party alternatively. They're either overjoyous, believing that illusionary, dreamy state that they have, that nothing can bring them down. Or, the opposite, they're just so glum and one small thing could really throw them off their path. But artistic expression is essential for this sign because it helps balance their emotional needs. And they will likely excel at art and more than one form of art. Perhaps they can play an instrument and sing, and they're a good writer, and they doodle and draw and things of that nature. But it's important to the Pisces to have their art as an escape. And the sun in Pisces at the early degrees, that's a deep emotional feeling this placement has at the early degrees. It can create, unfortunately, them to lean a little bit towards drugs or alcohol, or maybe overindulgence of food or snacks or unhealthy behaviors, just because they're trying to come to terms with things that are going on in their life. So that it's something that can jeopardize that life force and that existence a little bit, driving them to the drugs or alcohol. Like a toddler, they have that inability to maintain composure or control and feel that takes the edge off. But unfortunately, that failure to control can range in a lot of things. It might not just be substances. Maybe something's going on at work and they'll just say, I'm just going to leave the job, forget it. And they're not thinking ahead that they have responsibilities and bills. And once that sadness or depression sets in, they could have some laziness and things like that. Even putting their own lives in peril just by not providing properly for themselves. But on a good note, they can be filled with adventure and exploration and creativity, and again, this written in visual arts. It's just accompanied with that dreamy fantasy tendency that they have. They could be very good at that. Neptune in the early degrees of Pisces. We know that Neptune is the Pisces planet to begin with, therefore the early degrees can be extremely strong in this placement. So you'll see people with a tendency, again, for dance and art and poetry and writing and all of these expressive things that those emotions bring out. And they could be introverted a little bit too much to focus solely on that as an occupation or a form of making a living. But it would be a great way for them to harness that energy and create an income, because they could have that constant release in that spiritual, artistic way. And speaking of spirituality, they do have an enhanced ability to be spiritual and religious and believe in higher things. So that plays a large role in their life as well, either publicly or internally. They might keep it to themselves and just have a greater understanding of how the world should be. Even though it's through that emotionally immature eyes, they have a good grasp on the spiritual side of things. So after covering those planets, I think Mercury now in the early degrees of Pisces would be the last one we'll take a look at for today. It's the communications planet. So having Pisces placements in the early degrees here might bring about like an idealistic form of communication, depending on some of the other placements. That idealism could be at work or in relationships or even in their own capabilities. They could have that Tyler-like response to maybe telling your boss, oh, I can handle that whole project myself, just to impress them, because you have that dreamy sense inside that, you can do it and your boss will like you more and all that. That's the Pisces thinking on that immature level there. Or maybe the relationship that they want is out of reach for them. It's just not somebody that is interested in them, but they still hold on to that romanticized thinking that maybe that'll happen someday. But on the positive side, this communication could spawn a ton of different creative ideas again, and that out-of-the-box thinking at work or anywhere that they need to enhance their lives. And it's very beneficial for them to have that dreaminess. It's just harnessing those early degrees in, and you'll find that in all the signs as you go through your chart and find the other placements. But I guess that's it for Pisces today and those early degrees. We touched on some planets, but if you'd like more information about your own chart or the early placements or any other readings, there'll be a link in the description below. So thanks so much for watching.